Hello crafty friends, I'm Lien from Studio Cato and I'm so glad you're joining me again today. This is actually yesterday's video. I'm a little late in editing and doing the voiceover bit, but I just wanted to let you know that there will be another video up today, and that will be my Casual Friday video. Now for this card, I am making a mini slimline card and I'm using some stamps by My Favorite Things. This is the Sky High stamp set and I'm stamping the critters on the plane from that and the little bird as well. And I'm stamping those in VersaFine Onyx Black ink onto Canson Montval 300 GSM watercolor cardstock. I thought I'd pick the 200 GSM cardstock. That's usually what I use for small images, and the 300 GSM is what I use for backgrounds, but this is what I grabbed and I just stuck with it. In the end, I'm glad I picked this one, and I'll tell you why later, but why I usually take the lighter weight for smaller images is it's way easier to fussy cut out. Now I am also going to heat emboss this. I like heat embossing my images. It gives a really nice finish to them, I think. So that's what I do. I use a super fine clear gloss embossing powder by Wow, and that just gives a nice shine to the line art. I usually heat set off screen, but I finally remembered to do it on camera, and it's just really easy. You make sure the heat tool is nice and hot before you bring it to the paper, and that should minimize the warping. Now let's get straight into the coloring. I'm using my Karin brush markers today, and I'm actually just using the markers. I am not using water to blend them out yet, like I usually do. I knew you could just use the markers for these, but I've never done it before. It's not a coloring method that I'm familiar with, so I wanted to test it out. And overall, it's really easy. It's probably easier than using watercolor with these or watercoloring with these, but your color options are more limited, I find. I am using the blending markers as well. That's what you saw me use on the propeller there. But overall, I think I will stick to just watercoloring with these instead, because as you may see, these fill up the paper. This usually happens when you're coloring with water-based markers, not necessarily watercolor markers, just any marker that's not alcohol-based. And I was really disappointed with this. I thought the paper, especially because I used such heavy cardstock for this, would hold up way better. And these markers really pull up the paper very fast. Anytime I would color over an area that was still wet, I would run the risk of ruining my paper, and I didn't like that at all. Now, an advantage, of course, with just using the markers and not diluting them with water is that the colors are very vibrant. Now, these colors are always vibrant. I've always enjoyed that in these markers, even when I'm watercoloring with them. But right now, these are really vibrant. Now, that means your image will also look a lot darker than if you're just watercoloring with it. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Now I set that aside to dry, and then I can work on my background. And my background consists of two pieces. This is the base layer, and I'm doing a really rough blend on it because most of it will be covered up. I'm just darkening up the edges. I am working on very pale blue cardstock to begin with, so I don't have to blend all that white into blue. Now the other piece of my background is already layered. These are 3 layers of thick white cardstock, and I die cut them with the You Are My Sunshine die, mini slimline die, by Crafty Meraki. It's a gorgeous die, and I will also use it as a stencil later in this video, and that's also a really fun option. Now the reason I layered all these pieces together before ink blending is that I really like the texture you get from ink blending onto a raised surface, because the edges will be darker, the edges of the cardstock will be darker, and you get a lot more variation in your blend. It's not necessarily splotchy, but it's not smooth either. It's just a little bit of in between. To assemble my card, I am gluing my background pieces onto my mini Slimline card base, and my card base measures 3.5 inches by 6.25 inches. This is based on the dies from Crafty Meraki. A lot of companies who have mini Slimline die products or stamps do use different measurements. There's no one universal mini Slimline measurement. So check if you're using a background die, check what the measurements on that are, and then you can figure out the measurements on your card base. I'm using some foam tape to prop up my sentiment strip, and I just stamped that sentiment from the same stamp set in Versamark ink and embossed it in Wow Bright White Superfine Embossing Powder. The foam tape I'm using is nothing fancy. It's super cheap foam tape from Action. It's comparable to a dollar store if you're not from Europe. So I'm sure you can find some foam tape that is not super expensive and won't break the bank. I just cut that up into smaller pieces, and then I can put it behind all of my images to adhere them to my card. And that just gives a nice bit of dimension to my card. And of course, once that's finished, I will make my matching envelope as well. Now I tried something new for that. I'm just using my We Are Memory Keeper sponge board, but I'm not following the directions for the mini Slimline size on there, because previous times it hasn't worked out that well for me. They're slightly crooked for some reason. This is the only size I've tried on my punch board that doesn't work out properly. My cards sometimes don't fit in it. So I went online and searched a calculator for this We Are Memory Keepers 1, 2, 3 punch board, which has a really long name to keep repeating. And yeah, you can just insert all the measurements for your card, and it will give you all the instructions you need to make an envelope out of this. And I'll make sure to link that calculator down in the description below. Now to decorate my envelope, I just cut out that You Are My Sunshine die once more out of a glossy cardstock. You can use acetate, but that usually doesn't cut as well in your die cutting machine. And I'm using that as a stencil, and again, this is really lovely as a stencil too. I'm just using some Pinkfresh Studio inks and a blending brush to apply ink through that. Now I did think the sun was a little white, so I'm adding some ink to that portion of the envelope as well. This may be my favorite and probably one of the simplest envelope designs on here because it's so happy and so summery. I really like it. I really love how this card turned out, even though I didn't really enjoy coloring with these markers the way I did today. But I'm just going to go back to watercoloring with them because that I did enjoy. I hope you liked the video and the card. If you did, make sure to leave a thumbs up on this video and leave your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to read them. You can also subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of my videos. And just as a reminder, this video is one day late, so you will get another video tonight as well. That will be my casual Friday video for this week. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll hope to see you next time.